Hey guys, this is Jamie. So today I want to talk about, I guess, the rise of a new Incel subreddit, which is called Kitchen Cells. It's pretty much being posted everywhere on like Instagram pages. I've seen other subreddits talk about it, like the Discords I'm in have mentioned it as well, because it's a very bizarre sort of concept. And obviously, the idea and sort of uh, the humor in finding incel pages has been widespread. So obviously, anytime a new incel subreddit pops out, it's met with a lot of ridicule, and obviously because we're used to very often having hostile people on there and bizarre dudes. Obviously, people look at it and for a cheap laugh, and usually, how to put this, these people aren't that great. But what I want to talk about was the fact that I found it really interesting that Kitchen Cell specifically has trans men. And I do have to say that obviously the idea of incels, which are not just cis men but trans men, is obviously not a new one. But it's very interesting that I feel like there's a lot more contents coming from trans men, and it's always specifically mentioned in the posts, and it can go like with different slurs or different degradation, dehumanization, misgendering and stuff, so using slurs. And I didn't see a lot of transphobia as well. And it's very bizarre because obviously right now we live in an era on the opposite where there's so much transphobia, and obviously like in the US and the UK with really bizarre bathroom laws in the UK, and in the US where everything's just getting struck down. So it's very bizarre to see this circle sort of being more acceptive, or not being against it, And in general, there is a sort of trend of incels sort of allowing trans men into their circles, which is quite interesting. And I do have to say that obviously men need a place to vent, and while I am sort of obviously very critical of the manosphere, and obviously I have a paper on it, and that was what my thesis was about, like where it originates from. I do have to say that men do need a place to vent, and they need support, they need to be able to show their emotions. And even if we look at this in a vacuum, the fact that we are all making fun of men showing their struggle, it is problematic. The problem is that the posts are very bizarre factually, because as you can see, they just post their fails cooking attempts, and post what would necessarily usually be a regular post. But because they use it with a photo, it kind of goes over the fact and adds a sort of over the top reaction to everything. And obviously, I don't think this is the best way to vent your emotions. And in general, men should be able to vent their emotions. This still goes from the fact that society pushes men to go into bizarre places or go into hateful circles because no one else lets them. And that is the problem of society. And I do have to say that I personally, obviously, I laughed as well at those posts, and but one thing is like laughing at a meme or laughing at a post. Another thing is like when you sit down and analyze like what is actually going on, and it's still very interesting that we are still stuck in this somehow. The world is moving, and we have such we in general, I feel like the world is in a very weird place where we have very strict ideals for everyone. We have very, very toxic views, obviously, from women and from men on their own insecurities and how they should look, body images, weight, height, shoe size, everything. And people end up thinking like, oh, like this arbitrary thing is not gonna get me laid, and then they start obviously going into extreme places like Inceldom. And obviously I have to say that posting something like, hey, I'm not gonna get laid, or like no woman is gonna look at me with a photo of an ungrilled steak is, I hope, harmless, and I'm assessing it harmless enough. But we do have to say that behind this there is a lot more issues, and there is a good Russian expression which goes that no joke is without a part of truth. So that's what I kind of wanted to emphasize on. And in general, there has been a big surge, a big rise of trans men which sort of relate to inceldom and go into right-wing rhetoric, into hateful rhetoric, homophobic as well, simply because they can't find girlfriends, so they relate obviously to their cis peers in the struggle. And obviously I can't relate because I'm not a straight man, I'm not bisexual, and I'm not really looking for woman's affection. So to me, I can just look at this and only sympathize sort of from the perspective of like, I'm a dude, they're a dude, and sort of understand from that, but not from the sexuality aspect, of course. And the problem is that indeed, like, straight men are pushed into this insane box where they can't vent and they can't complain, and people sort of try to look. If you ask women, they'll say, like, obviously there's a patriarchy. There's the fact that men get coddled, but at the same time, a lot of men don't, which don't follow into, when they don't fall into convenience standards, into certain class standards, into race standards. So yeah. And in the end, everyone's fucked, everyone's angry, and that's why we end up with undercooked pasta, you know, with posts. So it's a really interesting phenomenon, no matter how you look at it. And the fact that all of a sudden, like, after a sort of a break, and in general after, I'd say, the manosphere had calmed down a bit, like teensy bit, because right now everyone's more focused on politics, people are more focused on Donald Trump, the politics in America, trans people are more focused on like what's happening in the UK and what's happening in the US, different trans laws and etc. So it's quite interesting that there is a new sort of wave of incel posting, and which seems to be trans inclusive. And it does worry me that obviously trans men are now a bigger part of it. But at the same time, they have been. It's just that now it's more vocal, it's more in your face, it's more posted, they're using obviously slurs against themselves. And it's factually fucked. So yeah. So obviously we will see how this ends up. And this is pretty much what I wanted to say. And I do want to say that if you obviously feel like you want to express yourself, it's fine to express yourself with emotions in a very in a way that will not harm others, will not degrade others, and to do it in a safe space as well, and with people who understand you. It can also be online, also people who understand you, and you need to take care of your mental health. And I think if you're sitting there posting, or when you start crying over being unable to cook food, because I cannot cook to save my life, and I've like cried over spilled ravioli, you know. If you're at that space, that doesn't mean that you need to be taking a photo of it and posting it online. It means that you need to be reaching out to people. And therapy people, feel free to reach out to anyone really. And find people who will listen, who will understand. So yeah. And obviously with the rise of the trans misandry and art trans happening as well, I can kind of see like why trans men can be sort of going into other places as well, and specifically because of their a lot of straight trans men obviously have homophobia, so they don't want to be associated with gay trans men, so that's another issue. So yeah, what I wanted to say is I hope everyone takes care of themselves. If you need to reach out, feel free to reach out to me. I have my socials everywhere. Feel free to leave a comment. If you like this video, or if you want to sort of share with your friends a deeper dive into kitchen cells, if feel free to share it, to argue with someone, and yeah, if you like this video, feel free to subscribe, and been really appreciating all the support. Thank you very much.